Hello, everyone. Welcome to another podcast. It's Ben Lister here in this radio special based podcast, episode 10 today of the Radio Legends podcast. This podcast is a radio based exclusive podcast documenting the life and times of radio stations, all the radio stations, and all the personalities from Radio 1 to Luxembourg to Caroline to all different radio stations. From different local stations from Viking FM and of course Casey FM and of course Compass FM and of course all the other FMs in the area and in the UK. So my guest today, he was on my 10th guest of the year on this series. He was an icon of Casey FM. He was on KCFM and he's more recently, you might recognise him from Radio Humberside. It's the one, the only Danny Longhorn. Hello, Danny. Welcome along. Daniel, sorry.
Thank you, Ben. What an absolute introduction now as well. An absolute honour to be on your podcast as well. And I think we should say congratulations because I believe this is number 200.
Yeah. I was hoping James Whale would have been 200, but you can't.
You should have just lied and swapped us around and said I was 199 and he was 200. There wouldn't have been any the wiser.
Yeah, but oh well, we're 200 and I'm going to go even further because why not? You only live once in this life. That's good. How are you feeling today?
I'm very well, thank you. Yeah, very well. Yeah, how about yourself?
Busy, but alive.
It's always good.
I've got to the bottom end of my email, pal, so I'm happy.
It's usually by the time you get to the bottom end of the pile that it's topped up again and it's back to plan A.
We're not going to go into politics today. Anyway, 8 questions about your broadcast career, if that's okay.
Yeah, looking forward to it.
Let's go for it. Question 1. Where did you start your broadcast career?
Well, career-wise, I always wanted to be a journalist from an early age. I remember being in primary school and writing the primary school newspaper, but I kind of first dabbled in broadcast journalism at university when me and a couple of mates did a uni show, really, which was based around alternative music. So we'd have live music and just play any music we liked on a Saturday evening, which was good fun. But then following uni, I went into print journalism. So I was at Hull Daily Mail for about a decade, and it wasn't until about 6-7 years in at the Hull Daily Mail that I went back into broadcast journalism, working at Vixen 101, which is a community station out in Market Wheaton, which was great fun, and it kind of lit that fire for me wanting to go into broadcast journalism. What I basically did is every Saturday with a guy called Tony Barker, who was a fantastic journalist, newsreader. Unfortunately, he's no longer with us anymore, but he was a great inspiration on that front, and we'd cover everything from speaking to local people to covering local shows, and basically armed with a laptop and a dongle, we'd go to various shows and just do live broadcasts, which was really good fun. There was times when we'd be in the middle of an interview and the signal would just go. So the second you had a signal, even if you're interviewing someone, you would not dare move. So yeah, that lit the fire for that, and then from that an opportunity came to work at KCFM as a newsreader and journalist, which I grasped with both hands. Was there for a couple of years and then moved into BBC Radio Humberside as well. So it's been good fun.
Yeah, and also we forgot to mention as well about that guy who you just mentioned, Tony. Is it Tony Parker, the late great?
Oh, Tony Barker, yeah, he was.
Tony Barker, was he at KCFM?
He did work at KCFM as well, but I first got to know him through Vixen 101, where he led the news coverage and presented various shows. We stayed in touch and our paths crossed when he went for a job at KCFM and got it as well. So I'd say, a year maybe? He was news reading there. Fantastic radio voice, very knowledgeable on the area and just community minded. Yeah, so it was great.
Brilliant. Yeah, because I remember. Did he pass on in April? Was it May?
It was last year. Yeah, because he was working. I'd say he was working at Beverley FM as well. he was reading the news there, and I think he did a show there as well.
That was under people like Andy Feely, Templeman, Dave Fewster.
Yeah, those are the ones. Yeah.
And Neil Rudd as well. A guy called Neil Rudd who was on Viking and Humberside.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, because it's Beverly FM are classed as our rivals.
There's no rivals in community radio. We're all in it together.
Some are, some aren't. Depends on who the station manager is.
Nah, it's good. I think you can't underestimate the importance in community radio. I think most people you speak to that work at like the BBC or commercial radio, usually the roots are in community radio. It's a great platform really to learn the skills, and yeah, it's good fun. I don't know if you find it yourself, Ben, at Hull Kingston Radio. It's a really good learning tool, isn't it?
Yeah, I want to expand into syndication, do the shows from here. Obviously, at the moment, due to the whatever we are in now.
Hopefully, restrictions are being lifted, and hopefully, the sense of normality is just around the corner.
And we can hopefully have guests back in our studios soon.
Yeah, that's the one thing that must have been a struggle, really, is kind of from a broadcast news point of view. You're trying to do interviews social distance, so you're relying on phone calls, video calls, and just hoping that the audio quality is good enough, it can be really hit and miss.
Yeah, brilliant. Yeah. Question 2, who were your early influences and inspirations when you were starting out at the bottom of the broadcast ladder?
Wow, when I was growing up, it was all about, in this area, for me, it was all about Radio Humberside for sport. So for your Hull KR and Hull City from my point of view, and then Viking FM, Galaxy 105, Radio 1, kind of for the music. So DJs wise, everyone from like Simon Mayo and Hairsty through to Alex Pepper, Dave Pearce, Zane Lowe, Scott Mills. I found them entertaining, but they also introduced me to music I otherwise wouldn't have heard. So I kind of like the radio where you'll know it, Ben. You know, when you listen to a story, you get to a destination, you still listen to that story and you think, I cannot leave the car until I've heard the end of this anecdote. So I like the laugh out loud kind of radio, and they all tick the box for me on that front. And then kind of probably later on, working in the industry, well, thankfully I've been quite lucky to work with many absolute pros. So just KCFM Radio Humberside, you've had Darren Leatham, Sam Hayward, Matt Hutchinson, Ross Carrick, Dale Dixon at KC, and then at Radio Humberside, working weekends reading the news, I work with the likes of Phil White, Andy Comfort, Fiona Mills, Lizzie Rose, James Hogarth. So it kind of really gives you that appreciation to the skills of trying to come up with links, stories, day in, day out. So yeah, too many to mention, I'd say.
And who's your favourite one from BBC Humberside that you got to see present at work? Who was your favourite person?
You put me on the spot now. Do you know, I really enjoyed, I'm going to mention a few, I can't just name one, but so basically I worked first thing on a Saturday and Sunday. So this would be while it's still pitch black outside, very few people around. And the energy of Phil White in the morning, he is as energetic off air as on air. And he was absolutely excellent to work with, as was Lizzie Rose on the Sunday. So she took over from Blair Jacobs doing the gardening show and the morning show. And she, again, a fantastic presenter. But then, of course, I've got to mention Absolutely Clueless, which I worked there while that was on. And it was mad, but in a really good way. It was great fun. It was hard reading the news not to get involved in the clues and thinking of solutions and answers. And yeah, that was great fun with Lucy and Andy Comfort. It's a show which worked really, really well. And I know people say, and I think Lucy said that when you interviewed her, about the fact people don't think it's real, that they're really driving to destinations that they have no idea where they're going. And I can assure you it is 100% true. And when it gets down to the kind of final few seconds and they're trying to find the final clue, it can get quite manic in the studio.
That show ended for reasons I don't know, because busy schedules.
I don't think the pandemic will have helped because it's hard to judge how long it takes to get to a destination, but they were absolutely fab to work with, and the producers as well, Jamie and Bob, who probably, they were behind the scenes. Jamie, who came up with the clues, I couldn't even understand the clues, never mind come up with a solution. In many cases, they were excellent. Yeah, it was really, really good fun to be involved in that.
Yeah, and also you forgot, and there was also a bit of the weather as well when the BBC Weather Centre thing. Because I know Andy had a guest, Paul Hudson, on his show sometimes.
I do. This was kind of midweek. They sometimes do the quiz, wouldn't they?
Yeah.
Yeah, which was good fun. I didn't read the news then, but I have heard it on several occasions, kind of listening in. It's one of those where the second you know it's coming up, you find yourself kind of stay in tune to find out what the questions are and what answers Paul Hudson can come up with.
You ever seen Bernsey about then?
Because I was, as well as doing the weekends, I freelanced a little bit, so I did read a few times for Bernsey. I really like his show. I really like what it does. It's a real voice of the people, and I think it's the fact he plays local music at what is a primetime radio as well. I think it's really good. Do you know what? It's a really nice guy as well.
Lives not far from you.
Yeah, not too. I think it's Hessel area, isn't it?
Yeah.
He's a real voice of the people, isn't he?
Yeah.
He gets to the bottom of issues and gets solutions in a lot of the cases.
Yeah, and it's good that he's still around.
I'll be around for a while. And on top of his news as well, on top of his show, he does all the city stuff as well, all the sports stuff as well. So he's
I did see it the other night. I did see it the other night.
Yeah.
Yeah. Did you ever read the news on Sports Talk?
No, not on, the nearest I got to that. So basically, if I was working during the week, the last broadcast was 6 o'clock, so Sports Talk will come in straight after. So I read the news and they go into their show, and there's once or twice when we
where does the other news come from after 6?
It's kind of a national, so it'll be more regionally based. So yeah, it just comes in from a regional base. So what we'd do is we'd submit when I was there, you'd submit a couple of local stories, which would just go into the pot of the regional stories. And that's how it used to be. I don't know if it's still the case now.
And where did they broadcast it from? Somewhere like Leeds, York, Sheffield?
I'm not sure where it was broadcast on, to be honest, but I'd guess so, yeah.
Where did you broadcast your news from?
From KC, we were Hessel.
And I mean in the building. Which studio?
Humberside. Yeah, so where have you been to the Humberside studios before?
There's 2 studios.
Yeah, so we would be either in the same studio as the presenter or the opposite studio to the presenter. It kind of varied, really. It depends how loud I was going to be setting up and whatnot. But yeah, usually the same studio. So basically, before the bulletin starts, you'd sneak in, set up the system, and just be ready to read the news when they put the fader up.
And so, and that picture with me and Peter Levy was done in the studio upstairs on the 3rd floor of the BBC.
Was that the TV studios?
No, it was a little office room.
Right, yeah. No, it's different. We were just, the radio ones were downstairs on the bottom.
Have you ever been upstairs into the office, the 1st floor offices?
Yeah, so when we weren't reading news, so we did all the non-news reading work on that 1st floor. So you've literally got your radio and TV on the same floor, and then one of the kind of offices, one of the rooms off from that floor is where the TV studios is, where Look North was filmed.
Have you ever had to sneak into the Look North studio?
Yeah, of course I have. Yeah, I was shown, but yeah, I've had a quick look through, but no one was in there. There's no fear of going on air and no fear of causing any damage. So it was literally a quick look around. Yeah.
Because Paul Woodford's been in there, but I think James Hogarth helped him out with that.
Did he give him a tour around?
Yeah, because James Hogarth, everybody knows who he is.
Do you know, really nice guy. James, kind of when I was going to join him, well, firstly, he helped me get in the door at Humberside by saying who could be a good port of call. And when I was there, he was very helpful. So if I needed anything or any advice or anything, he would jump at the chance to help. He's just a great guy. Yeah,
He's a big Hull City fan.
he's a huge Hull City fan. Yeah.
Like one of my friends, one of my colleagues at Hull Kingston Radio, Jeff Bealby.
Jeff used to be involved in the supporters club, didn't he? I don't know if he still is.
I think he does more. I think he's involved as an ambassador for football equality, I think.
Yeah.
Where he helps the fans get the voice, helps young grassroots football. He's an ambassador for that, I think.
You know, probably a really good guy for that sort of job from the times I've spoken to him.
Helps the fans get a voice.
Yeah, yeah.
On a national level.
Yeah.
Yeah, which is good, which he is a brilliant presenter, you know.
No, I bet he is, yeah. I bet he is.
Because he does a lot of mental health. I think his show, because he does it on a Monday, is called Mindful Monday.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Excellent. Yeah. I've not heard it. I knew he did a show, but I've never listened to it, so I'll have to check it out.
Yeah, I sometimes see him on the Monday because I'm normally in studio too, pre-recording some bits.
Yeah. Yeah, because you're saying you're working from home at the minute, aren't you?
No, I'm doing my podcasts, all my podcasts from home. I'm looking for a mobile. I'll probably go into the different studios when I can, but I'm currently doing most things except my Hull Kingston, everything except Hull Kingston Radio from here.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, which is quieter sometimes, yeah.
Do you know what you think that? I know I've got 2 dogs downstairs, and the next door neighbour's got a duck that seems to be like some kind of guard duck. So every time the doorbell, or there's a knock at the door, you hear this duck quacking next door. So I've closed the windows just so you don't have any extra sound effects.
Yeah. Whereabouts are you based then, before we go on to question 3?
Yeah, just Carerer, so literally just on the outskirts of, well, Carerer. Yeah, I think people know whereabouts that is.
I think Leatham's not based far from you, and Matt Hutchinson as well.
Yeah, I think they're both in the villages. Yeah, yeah. So I think Darren moved reasonably recently, didn't he?
I don't know where he is now. One of the villages. I have a feeling it's somewhere between Swanland and Carerer because I saw a Facebook photo of it.
I'll have to keep my eye out. If there's any garden fates or anything, he'll probably be the headline opener, won't he?
Yeah. I think he lives somewhere in between that area.
Yeah.
Because I've seen it because it had a picture of the Humber Bridge in the background.
So is this part? I'll have to keep an eye out.
On his Facebook, I think. But yeah, and I live about, because as I say, question 3 now anyway. We'll skip that, edit that bit out. Or I might not. Question 3 now anyway. What is your favourite part of the job about being a broadcaster?
What was the favourite part? That was a good question, because I think, as everyone says, no 2 days are the same, which is good. But I think it's that buzz of breaking news. So kind of going on air and knowing that you're informing the listeners of something that they probably don't already know, or the majority won't have heard before. And it's quite a privileged position to be in, kind of enjoy talking to people and hearing their stories as well. And then the editing side of things, where you might have done a 5-10 minute interview and you've got to find the best 15, 20, 30 seconds for a news broadcast. And yeah, you trusted, people put the trust in you to tell the stories. So these could be achievements or there could be hardships, but yeah, it's a real privilege to do that. I think that's the favourite side of the job. I think the worst side is probably when you're reading a script and you mess up, even though you've gone through the script. Or probably what happened more so is when you knew a complicated word was coming up and you know it becoming, you'd have practiced it time and time again. You'll say that word correctly, and then there'll be a real simple word afterwards that you'll mess up on, which I'm sure I did on numerous occasions. But overall, it's a really enjoyable job.
Brilliant. Brilliant. Question 4 now. What is your greatest achievement in the radio industry?
Greatest achievement. I think just moving from print journalism to broadcast journalism and being allowed to read the news live on both KCFM and Radio Humberside was probably the first achievement that comes to mind. I can remember reading my first news bulletin at KCFM, which I don't listen back to because I probably sounded absolutely terrible. But I remember it was Sam Hayward at the time said, "Right, you're ready to read." So read the broadcast, and I came out of the studio, and all the office was clapping, which made it 10 times more embarrassing. But it's just that buzz of having read live to probably thousands of people. You don't really think about when you're reading. And then Humberside as well, a station I'd listened to time and time again, and reading for presenters who were household names locally was a real honour. Because I think there are, like, moving from print to broadcast, there are a lot of similarities, but one thing that in terms of the interviewing side of things and talking to people and producing a story, but one thing that was completely different was news reading, which completely different skill. And I think it also gave my friends a bit of a shock as well if they were listening to Humberside or KCFM and my dulcet tones would suddenly appear. And then that would be probably the biggest achievement, but also it's been very lucky throughout the time at KCFM particularly. I went to Wembley several occasions covering Hull City and Hull KR and Hull FC, and having Wembley as a place of work for the day is about as good as it gets, particularly if the team wins as well.
Brilliant. Yeah, that's brilliant. That is, yeah.
How about yourself then? Go on. I know on your podcast, what's been your favourite moment so far?
This isn't about me, so I'm going to not say anything.
No worries.
I'll do that when I get interviewed by someone. Question 5 now. What does radio mean to you?
Radio means to me, I think you can't underestimate the importance of radio, particularly during these last few years. I think it's got an important role of informing and entertaining, and for some people as well, it probably is kind of might be the only voice to hear some days, might be the voice of the presenter. So it's very much kept me informed and entertained. A lot of the music I listen to as well, kind of songs or acts that I've been introduced to thanks to the radio.
Brilliant. Question 6 now. What song reminds you of the radio? The wireless, the audio.
What song reminds me of the radio? I think the easy answer would be Radio Gaga by Queen, but I think there's several. Off the top of my head, I remember kind of the first time, this will be on Radio 1, hearing Stereophonics' Local Boy in a Photograph. They were doing some live concert and you hear a song and you think, wow, this song is excellent. What's it called? Or like Muse Nights of Sidonia, that kind of guitar riff at the end, that feeling of hearing a song for the first time. But then kind of locally as well, you people like Alan Raw and Bernsey on Humberside play local music. So without them playing this local music, I wouldn't have heard of acts like Dirty Sterling or Mighty and the Moon, and just some of the great local acts. But I think as much as the songs, I remember the adverts and the jingles, particularly kind of the news jingle at KCFM. I think probably Darren might tell you about this one, but there were several times I'd be editing something for the news broadcast, and Darren, he'd be on air and his studio door would suddenly open up and he'd shout the word news. And basically, because I'd lost track of time, he'd be about to play the news jingle and I wouldn't be in the news studio ready to read the news. So it'd be a mad dash to get everything ready for the news broadcast.
Brilliant, yeah. How do you think the world of radio is adapting in the COVID times? Sorry.
Yeah, I think we've all kind of got used to working from home or working on our own, really, haven't we? Because of social distancing and things. I think there's some things we can take from what's happened COVID, ways of working and learning and things like that. But I think we'll all be relieved once it is a sense of normality. I think from a broadcast journalism point of view, we've had to rely, in the past I've worked at stations where we would not allow phone quality interviews. It would have to be face-to-face, or they'd have to record it at their end, so the quality would have to be spot on just so it's broadcastable. But I think in the last 2 years, it's been about phone calls, video calls, and using this kind of quality. But I think there's been a challenge as well in terms of, obviously we've had to report on COVID-related stories, but there has to be stories which aren't about COVID, although it's the biggest news story at the time and people want to hear about it. People always wanted to hear other stuff as well. So I want to hear, stories to really lift people's spirits, not just more doom and gloom about what's happening on the COVID front. So I think there's been a real challenge for those working as broadcast journalists at the minute to find those other stories and those nuggets.
Brilliant. Last question on my list is, what advice would you give to young aspiring broadcasters who are starting out?
Oh, what would I say? Don't give up. I think if you've got the aspirations and you want to succeed in broadcast journalism, opportunities will present themselves. And I think when I first went to university, I studied journalism at university, and the lecturer at the time saying journalism isn't well paid. It kind of didn't put me off, and I'm kind of pleased it didn't put me off, because, as I said earlier, no 2 days are the same, and it's just good fun. It's really good fun. I think you have to work experience or looking for opportunities to work at stations is always a way forward to get you kind of your foot in the door. Find out what it entails. Find out how hard it is to get in, what the job entails, and contact presenters, contact broadcast journalists for their advice, any questions you've had. And I might just have been lucky, but I've found that they've always been willing to get back in touch and offer advice. I think I kind of a good example, I know you've interviewed him as well, George Smith, who worked at KCFM, who was at uni and worked at KCFM while I was there. He would do a lot of odd jobs initially, and then he was given a chance to work on the House Party, and now he's working at several BBC stations. He had a real energy and passion to work in the radio, and he's doing a cracking job. And what you're doing, Ben, as well, your podcast, you're speaking to people that have been involved in the industry, you're working at community radio, which is giving you great experience. You're doing all the right things.
Thank you. And who gave you the best advice before we wrap up?
Who gave me the best advice? What would have been that lecturer who said journalism doesn't pay well? I don't know. Advice. Probably the best advice I've had is listening to people on air. So listening to the news, kind of news readers. I don't know, actually, probably the voice training wise. So there was a guy, Sam Hayward, and there's a guy called Waggy as well, who at Links FM who used to do voice training.
Wagstaff.
That's the guy, yeah. So those two, and Sean Dunderdale as well, did a bit of kind of voice training work with me, and that did wonders. So the best advice was them listening to my broadcast and saying how I could improve or how I could, become clearer on air. So I'd probably say credit to those three.
Brilliant. That's it for today. Thank you for joining us, Daniel.
Ben, it's been a pleasure. Keep up your great work, and I look forward to the next 200.
Do stay there for the photo. Thank you very much for watching and listening. But now, please give it up for my special guest, Mr. Danny Longhorn. Thank you very much for watching. This will be available on my YouTube channel and listening on my wix.com website and a radio syndication on your local station. So thank you very much for joining me. But for now, that's a wrap.